Welcome to District Command Central, your go-to source for the latest news and updates on the Washington Commanders. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a play. The Washington Commanders didn't need an entire preseason to reveal their biggest weakness. It took just one game under the bright lights of Gillette Stadium for the cracks in their armor to be laid bare. Fans who had been cautiously optimistic after Adam Peters' offseason moves, particularly the late addition of Von Miller, suddenly found themselves staring at the same old problem. The edge rush, the lifeblood of any modern defense, looked toothless without his main weapons on the field. Miller didn't play. Frankie Louvu was in street clothes. Dorrance Armstrong Jr. was nowhere to be seen. And Javonte Jean-Baptiste, a young player many were eager to watch, also sat this one out. On paper, that should be an explanation, but on the field, it was a glaring reminder if depth doesn't deliver, the starters will be running to the ground and opposing quarterbacks will breathe far too easily all season. Now, preseason is a time for evaluation, experimentation, and sometimes even mild humiliation. But what unfolded against the New England Patriots felt like a warning shot across the bow. The Commanders rolled out Jacob Martin and Clelin Ferrell to start, hoping their experience might bring stability. Behind them, younger and hungrier players like Andre Jones Jr. and TJ Maguranyanga rotated in, each given a chance to stake a claim to a roster spot. Even Jalen Holmes, a bigger-bodied defensive end, saw snaps on the outside, while smaller, more athletic prospects like Tyler Owens and Kane Medrano got experimental edge work. The result? Nearly 4 quarters of football with the pass rush coming, mostly from the inside. The Patriots' tackles had far too comfortable a night, and Washington's edge players rarely disrupted the rhythm of the opposing quarterback. It wasn't just a quiet night. It was the kind of silence that screams trouble when September rolls around. There were, admittedly, 2 moments that teased potential. Andre Jones Jr. on one snap burst inside with a clean move, leaving Dimontre. Jacobs lunging at air. Jalen Holmes, in another sequence, worked a slick 2-man stunt with Sheldon Day that collapsed the pocket. Both plays forced the quarterback to adjust, but neither ended in a sack, and neither felt like momentum changes. The lone sack of the night came from rookie interior lineman Johnny Newton, whose first quarter penetration forced a fumble that Martin recovered. Without that single flash of inside dominance, Washington might have walked away with no defensive highlight at all. That's how scarce the impact was from the outside. And in a league where edge pressure is the first line of defense against elite quarterbacks, this kind of output is not a quirk. It's a problem. Fans can forgive rust in August, but they can't ignore patterns that feel like a repeat of the very issues the offseason was supposed to fix. Of course, it's easy to say, well, the starters weren't playing. And yes, once Miller, Louvu, Armstrong, and Jean-Baptiste suit up, the Commanders' edge threat will look far different. But football is a war of attrition. Even the healthiest teams lose players over the course of a season. Depth isn't a luxury. It's survival insurance. When the backups get their shot, coaches want to see at least a glimmer of disruption. Something that says, if the top guy goes down, I can hold the line. Against the Patriots, that insurance policy looked shaky. Martin, who has the most experience among the reserves, didn't exactly demand a bigger role. And the younger players, while energetic, looked raw and inconsistent. It's one thing to get beat by a savvy veteran tackle. It's another to disappear entirely for long stretches of the game. That's what Washington's coaching staff has to be wrestling with today. The ripple effect of weak depth on the edge goes beyond just injury coverage. A strong rotation allows starters to play with fresh legs deep into games and through the grind of a 17-game season. That means Von Miller can be at his most explosive in the 4th quarter rather than gassed from carrying the load. It means Louvu can blitz with reckless abandon, knowing he won't be asked to take every snap. Without reliable backups, however, those luxuries disappear. Starters get worn down, and by December their production tails off. That's the scenario Washington desperately wants to avoid. But right now, no young player has stepped up to earn that trusted role. There's still time before week 1, but the margin for patience is shrinking. The Commanders have invested heavily in making their defense a force. If the edge collapses again, all that investment could be undermined in the most frustrating way. Fans can point to the preseason caveat. It's only August, and that's fair. But this wasn't just about the score or the missed tackles. It was about an entire position group failing to make its presence felt. Against the Patriots, Washington's outside rushers were essentially ghosts, and the few disruptions they did cause came almost entirely from well-timed stunts or breakdowns by New England's offensive line. Pure one-on-one wins off the edge were rare, and that's alarming. In a league where quick passing attacks demand instant pressure, any defense that relies too heavily on interior rush will eventually get picked apart by quarterbacks who simply step outside the pocket. That's why depth matters. You can't just have two guys who can win off the edge. You need 4, sometimes 5, ready to roll. On Friday night, Washington looked like a team with 1.5, and that's being generous. This puts even more pressure on the front office and coaching staff to evaluate whether the answers are already on the roster or if help needs to come from the outside. Cuts are coming across the league, and a few intriguing veterans might hit the market. There's also the possibility of a late summer trade to shore up the position. But making moves in August comes with its own risks, cost, scheme fit, and the reality that any player available now is available for a reason. The Commanders could gamble on the idea that Martin regains form and that one of the younger players flashes in the final 2 preseason games. Or they could decide that the film against New England wasn't an isolated incident, but rather a glimpse into the depth chart's true limitations. Either way, the clock is ticking, and every day without a solution is a day closer to facing real NFL offenses. The irony is that Washington's defensive identity is supposed to be built on relentless front 7 pressure. Adam Peters didn't assemble this roster to play bend but don't break football. He built it to overwhelm opponents in the trenches. But even the fiercest interior push can be neutralized if quarterbacks have clean escape routes outside the pocket. That's why edge play isn't just about sacks. It's about containment, disruption, and forcing offenses into uncomfortable decisions. Against the Patriots, Washington's edges failed on all 3 counts. The quarterbacks rarely had to hurry throws, running backs found daylight off tackle, and misdirection plays kept the outside defenders guessing. If this trend continues into the regular season, the Commanders could find themselves in high-scoring shootouts they aren't built to win. It's not panic time yet, but the seeds of a recurring problem were planted on Friday night, and ignoring them would be a dangerous gamble. For now, the takeaway from this game is brutally simple. The Washington Commanders need more from their edge rushers, period. Whether that more comes from veterans returning to health, young players making a leap, or fresh faces brought in from the outside, the problem can be wished away. This is the NFL. Weaknesses are exposed fast, and opponents will attack them without mercy. The preseason offers a chance to experiment, to learn, and yes, to fail. But the lessons must be acted on. The Commanders have a talented core and the potential to be a top-tier defense. But if the edge collapses, quarterbacks will find ways to escape, extend plays, and put points on the board. And in a division with offenses like Philadelphia and Dallas, that's a blueprint for disappointment. The hand-wringing over edge depth is back, and after one game, it's entirely justified. If you're enjoying the coverage, make sure to smash that like button and drop a comment with your thoughts on the Commanders' latest moves. We want to hear from you. The buzz around Washington has been electric this week, and it's all centered on one name, Chase Young. After weeks of speculation, whispers from inside the facility are growing louder that Young is not only ready to return, but that his comeback will be celebrated like a homecoming parade. The former second overall pick has been sidelined far longer than fans would have liked. Battling through injuries and setbacks has seemed to test his patience and resilience. Yet now, word is he's been tearing up practice sessions behind closed doors, showing flashes of the explosiveness that made him a defensive nightmare in his rookie season. The Commanders' locker room reportedly erupted when coaches hinted at his availability, and if this rumor proves true, Washington's pass rush could be about to get a seismic boost. Some say it's exactly the emotional lift the team needs heading into the most crucial stretch of the season. Chase Young's journey back hasn't been just about rehab, it's been about redemption. People close to the team describe a player who's matured during his time away, studying film obsessively, refining his technique, and focusing on becoming a more complete defender. There's a sense that the injury was both a setback and a blessing, forcing him to reassess and rebuild his game from the ground up. This rumored return isn't just a medical clearance, it's a statement. The Commanders have been decent defensively, but they've lacked that terrifying edge rusher who can wreck a drive with one burst off the line. Young's presence alone forces offensive coordinators to rethink their blocking schemes, often diverting resources his way, which could free up teammates to make big plays. Fans are already imagining the ripple effect. More pressure, more turnovers, more momentum. And with the NFC picture still wide open, timing couldn't be better for Washington to unleash its most feared weapon again. It's not just fans getting excited. Insiders say the coaching staff has been cautiously optimistic for weeks. Ron Rivera, ever the steady voice, hasn't confirmed anything outright, but his comments have been sprinkled with hints. Observers noticed the grin he couldn't quite hide when reporters asked about Young's status during a midweek press conference. There's talk that the team might even stage something special during his return game, turning it into a celebration. Not just for Young, but for the entire fan base that's waited patiently. In a season where consistency has been elusive, this kind of emotional high could be invaluable. Young's energy is infectious. Teammates feed off it, and crowds respond to it instantly. If the Commanders compare that emotional surge with tangible on-field production, it could flip the trajectory of their season. Whether it's a playoff push or just restoring pride to the franchise, a fully operational Chase Young could become the ultimate game changer. The rumor mill is churning, and Washington is holding its breath. Word is that Young has been quietly dominating scout team reps, causing havoc for backup offensive linemen who can't match his blend of power and speed. One anonymous player reportedly said it's like trying to block a freight train that knows your snap count. That kind of description is music to the ears of Commanders fans who've missed seeing their defensive line at full force. Imagine pairing Young with Montez Sweat again. Two edge rushers who can close the pocket faster than most quarterbacks can process their reads. Analysts have already begun speculating on how this might shift the defensive strategy, possibly allowing Washington to get more aggressive with blitz packages, knowing they can trust the front four to cause chaos. And let's not forget the psychological impact. Opposing QBs knowing Young is back changes how they play. Shorter drops, quicker throws, more mistakes. That's how momentum is built in the NFL, one pressured snap at a time. The rumor has also ignited debates among analysts about just how much difference one player can make. Some argue that defensive football is a collective effort, and while Young's talent is undeniable, the Commanders' success will still hinge on discipline and execution across the board. Others counter that elite pass rushers are rare game breakers, who can elevate everyone around them, much like Aaron Donald does in Los Angeles or Myles Garrett in Cleveland. Young, when healthy, belongs in that conversation. Even in games where he doesn't fill the stat sheet, his presence alters offensive game plans. That's the kind of influence that doesn't always show up in box scores, but is felt in the flow of a game. If he returns at even 85% of his rookie form, it could tilt close contests in Washington's favor. And in a league where the margin between winning and losing is razor thin, that might be all the Commanders need. Beyond the X's and O's, there's a narrative appeal that can't be overlooked. Chase Young's comeback would be a feel-good story in a season where Washington has faced its share of adversity both on and off the field. It's the kind of moment that can unite a fan base, inspire a locker room, and grab national headlines. The NFL loves a redemption arc, and Young's potential return fits the script perfectly. The young star cut down by injury, doubted by critics, working in silence until the moment he can shock everyone. You can already picture the highlight reels, slow motion shots of him exploding off the edge, the crowd roaring as he drags down a quarterback, teammates mobbing him in celebration. In the high-stakes world of pro football, those moments are currency. They energize stadiums, sell jerseys, and turn casual viewers into believers. If this rumor becomes reality, Washington might just have its spark back. There's also the strategic element of timing. The Commanders are entering a stretch where they face several teams with vulnerable offensive lines. If Young is activated now, he could immediately exploit those weaknesses and help Washington stack wins. It's not unreasonable to think the coaching staff has circled these games on the calendar, hoping to unleash their defensive weapon at just the right moment. There's even chatter that the front office sees this as a way to shift the narrative around the franchise, showing they can develop and sustain star talent despite recent turbulence. For Young himself, this return could be the beginning of the next phase of his career, a chance to remind the league why he was once seen as a generational prospect. Every snap will be both a test and an opportunity, and from all accounts, he's eager to take it. The stakes, both personal and team-wide, couldn't be higher. Rumors like this inevitably spill into social media, and that's exactly what's happening. Washington's Twitter feed is buzzing with fan theories, highlight clips from Young's rookie season, and speculative lineups featuring his name back in bold letters. Instagram stories from teammates hint at something big, though none have outright confirmed it. That's the beauty of this kind of build-up. It fuels anticipation, keeps people talking, and turns an ordinary week into must-watch territory. Even rival fan bases are paying attention, some nervously, others scoffing at the hype. But deep down, everyone knows the potential impact of an elite pass rusher suddenly re-entering the mix. The Commanders' defensive identity has always been tied to its front line, and Young's return will be like reattaching a missing piece of armor. Whether it happens this Sunday or a week later, the anticipation is reaching a fever pitch, and every day without confirmation only adds to the suspense. Inside the Commanders' facility, the mood reportedly feels lighter, more energized. Young's voice in team meetings, his presence in the locker room, and his competitiveness in drills are said to be lifting spirits. Some players believe this could be the turning point in their season, not because of any magic formula, but because football is as much about belief as it is about execution. When a star returns, it signals to the rest of the roster that the team is getting stronger, not weaker, as the season wears on. That belief can turn into urgency on the field, sharper focus in practice, and ultimately wins on the scoreboard. For Washington, whose playoff hopes are still alive but fragile, this rumored return feels like a lifeline. Now, it's just a matter of whether the whispers will become an official announcement and whether Chase Young will truly step back into the spotlight he once commanded. At the end of the day, rumors are just that. Rumors! But this one feels different. Too many signs point toward a return for it to be pure speculation. Teammates' cryptic comments, media reports citing unnamed sources, and the visible progress in Young's movement during sideline warm-ups all feed into the belief that something big is coming. If the Commanders do make it official, expect FedEx Field to erupt the moment his name is announced over the loudspeaker. The real test will come when the ball is snapped and Young faces live action for the first time in months. Can he still bend the edge with the same ferocity? Can he hold up against double teams? The answers will come soon enough. Until then, the entire city of Washington is holding on to hope. And in football, sometimes hope is the most dangerous weapon of all. Thanks for tuning into District Command Central. Make sure to subscribe and follow us for all the Commanders news you need. Until next time, keep the faith and hail to the Commanders.